I come from the state of nowhere, in the middle of the land of none, where scattered bones from yesterday lie bleaching in the sun. Sometimes I think I hear him singing, and it makes me want to sing along, but the whole of desolation telling me the song is all wrong, telling me the song is all wrong. Oh, you taught me about freedom, preached to me of life, and then showed me all the did, all the horror and the strife. But I didn't want to believe it in my bright and sunny skies. But the corporate abomination made me look, made me cry. It made me look, made me cry. Oh, you heard all about me. I'm the one you will deny, 'cause I'll teach your children everything, reveal the truth and reveal the lie. But I just want to play in the garden with my friends and have a real good time. But this monster of man's creation demands a reason and a rhyme, demands a reason and a rhyme. Oh, I come from the state of nowhere, in the middle of the land of none, where shattered dreams of yesterday lie bleaching in the sun. Sometimes I think I hear him singing, and it makes me want to sing along with the horror of desolation telling me the song is all wrong, telling me the song is all wrong, telling me the song is all wrong. Welcome to Anecdotal Evidence. The definition of what anecdotal evidence means is easy to find out. You can look it up in Wikipedia or a dictionary or whatever you want. But basically, anecdotal evidence is anything that someone believes to be true, either by their experience or observation. And when you actually combine two experiences and observation together where they agree on the same thing, then that is no longer anecdotal evidence. So the reason why I am doing the anecdotal evidence is because there is so much information, misinformation, and disinformation that is being disseminated on the internet at this point that I wanted to paint. It's rather abstract in a way I'm getting at it, because I'm basically telling some personal tales to start with, and then we will branch out into other participants, hopefully. And the way in which I'm going to be telling these stories is, I'm going to tell a story and I'll play music, which I think illustrates or accents the point. In fact, the first song that I played has the lines, "Well, I come from the state of nowhere, in the middle of the land of none." And that's as much of a lyrical backstory as I have. So from that standpoint, the journey that I'm going to describe to you really began when I was almost 8 years old. It was I lived in the Bible Belt in the middle of America, and everywhere I looked, there was aspects of the story of what we knew then as Jesus all over the place on the TV, and people talked about. Everybody went to church except for me. I didn't go to church because my parents weren't churchgoers. I mean, we were all baptized and belonged to the Lutheran religion. I was baptized Lutheran, but I never saw the inside of a Lutheran church till much, much later in my life, except for when I was a baby, and I don't remember it. So it all begins when I was 8. And I was curious. I was curious about the whole story, the story of Jesus and the biblical stories. And I'd seen, a few movies. I'd seen the Ten Commandments, and I had probably the same kind of images in my head that any other kid would have had in that time and age. So I wanted to find out some true answers about it all, not just from Hollywood. Even though I was only 8 years old, I already knew Hollywood was fake. I enjoyed it, sure, but I knew it was fake. So I wanted to find out. So I asked my parents if I could go to church with some friends of mine from school, to go to Sunday school and hang out and check out what's going on. And my parents didn't have a problem with that. They gave me a ride, picked me up. So I went to Sunday school with my peers, around almost 8 years old, in a Southern Baptist church in a town in the middle of the Midwest that was so basic and farm community that the town that I was living in did not even have a paved road through it. It was gravel. The main street was gravel. It had 2 bars, 1 church, and the grocery store. That was the town, and a school. And the school was kind of cool in a way. It had the grades from 5 to 12, and it was each grade was doubled up with another grade. So for example, I was in the 3rd and 4th grade at the same time. Or was it 4th and 5th? At any rate. So I went to the church, and I had been going for, several weeks, and going to Sunday school and listening to them tell the Bible stories and everything else, and they were all very entertaining. And yet it wasn't giving me the answers that I needed. I wasn't getting answers. I mean, I really wanted to know, okay, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Jesus. They're talking about this guy, Jesus, that even when he was like a kid, I mean, he never got dirty. He never cried. He never threw rocks at other kids. He never got angry. He was just like the perfect little angel all the time when he was a kid. And as a almost 8-year-old, I found the idea and concept of that to be a real challenging idea. To imagine being a 7 or 8-year-old kid that didn't do those things at least once or twice. So I was very curious, and I wasn't getting my answers in Sunday school. So one day I decided to go hang out with the grown-ups during the chapel, during the main sermon with all the adults, instead of Sunday school. After Sunday school was over, then the kids went out and played, and then they started the sermon. And I decided to go into the sermon instead. So I was in there, and I was feeling kind of small because there wasn't any other kids in there. It was all adults, all grown-ups, more or less. And I was trying to listen to what the minister was saying. He was preaching something out of the Old Testament. Since at that point in time in my life, I didn't know anything about any of the scriptures. I hadn't read anything yet. So I didn't know what he was talking about. It was totally over my head and beyond my comprehension what he was talking about. So I just started daydreaming, and I'm thinking, I'm daydreaming, wondering what it was like to be around Yeshua, to see that guy. And to see him be a kid and not throw rocks and pull pigtails and, get dirty and stuff. And I was daydreaming on that. And I was looking at there was a big cross behind the altar. It wasn't like a Catholic cross. It was just a cross. There was no body hanging off of it. And I was staring at the cross and daydreaming about Jesus. And all of a sudden, this bright light came out of the center of the cross. And it's like everything just kind of diminished and turned, partially transparent in this light. The light was so overwhelming. It's like what was happening with the minister in the church just kind of like faded into this barely substantial thing. And the light was all there was. And then this figure, which I knew it had to be Jesus, because it looked just like the Jesus that I had been seeing in all these different depictions, long hair, beard, white robe, sandals, and he just came out of the center of the light and approached me. And I was awestruck, absolutely awestruck, because there was this being standing in front of me, like walking in the air, whose hair and eyes were like had the reflection of life and light, and they were kind of twinkling a little bit, and he was at a slight smile, and his hair was like moving in the breeze, and so was his garment. So I was in this church, so there wasn't really any breeze there, but that was what I was experiencing. And he stood there and he extended his hand out to me. And this 7, almost 8-year-old sat there in the pew, and I looked at him and looked for the longest amount of time and did not move. I was frozen. I did not take my hand up and reach up to grab his hand. Sometimes I often wonder what would happen if I'd have done that. But I didn't. So I sat there just in awestruck silence, observing it and witnessing it and feeling it. And it felt pretty mighty, I gotta say. There was a pretty powerful feeling. And it's not that I felt powerful, I just felt the power. And then after a certain amount of time, which it was probably only a matter of minutes, or maybe even just a minute or two. It's hard to say. That moment was so kind of eternal and infinite in itself. But eventually, it's like he kind of like diminished back and went back into the light. And the light went back into the cross, and like poof, I was like back in the church. And the minister was just like wrapping up his sermon. And all of a sudden, though, it's like all of a sudden I was like telepathic or something, because I was sensing all these people that were in that church, and not a single one of them wanted to be there for, they didn't want to be there to worship. They were afraid not to be there and none of them wanted to be there. It's like I saw and felt and almost read the thoughts of these people as they were like the guy fidgeting with his pocket because he wanted to go smoke a cigarette. And the guy kept looking at his watch because he was missing the football game. And the young guy who was like looking at the young girl over there, and you can imagine what kind of thoughts he was having. And on and on and on it went. And my mind was blown. I didn't know what to make of it. I was only 7 going on 8. I did not know what to make of it. So I sat there as he wrapped up the sermon and people filed out of the church. And I sat there for minutes just trying to gather my wits about me because of what I had just experienced. And eventually I got up and I left. I was like the last one to leave. And as I crossed over the threshold of that church, I heard a voice, a very small, close but far away voice, say to me, "If you're looking for me, I am not here." Now, I knew exactly what had just been shown to me and what it told me. And it probably took me years to actually figure all that out. But that's the first tale that I wanted to tell you. And as we move forward in this, the purpose and the reason why I'm telling these tales, hopefully, will become more clear and evident. Until next time.